This episode of the podcast is brought to you by photographing a photographer, so now they have to switch to pottery. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Roll the Creds, the podcast, the only podcast that parted the Red Sea. I'm Zach.
And I'm Frank.
And today we are here to talk about Prince of Egypt. Our first, honestly, I think our first, religious film. Kind of.
Well, we did Mother. We did Darren Aronofsky's Mother.
That's not kind of.
It's the story of God. What do you mean it's not?
And then we got a little bit of something for V for Vendetta because of the poster that I chose.
Yeah.
With the cross on it.
Right.
So this will be a true test to see how we do. Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks. I'm gonna run down the shit, and then we'll get into it. So Prince of Egypt came out in 1998. It was directed by three people. It was directed by Brenda Chapman, Simon Wells, and Steve Hickner, who also, I think, did a lot of the music for or he was big with a lot of Disney films. So you have way too crazy of a cast for this film, in my opinion. For an animated DreamWorks now taken over by Disney film, way too many people in this film. So you have Val Kilmer playing Moses and also God. You have Ralph Fiennes, who plays Ramesses. You have Sandra Bullock, who plays Miriam, Moses' wife. Or no, that's the sister. Sorry.
Yeah.
You have Steve Martin playing Hotep. You have Patrick Stewart playing Seti the First, so the dad. You have Martin Short playing Hugh or Ha, I think how it's pronounced in the film. They say it literally once. You have Michelle Pfeiffer playing Zipporah, the wife of Moses. And then you have Jeff Goldblum playing Aaron, the brother. And then I really didn't see anybody else that was super important.
Steve Martin.
I said Steve Martin.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, he was in there.
Nice.
And if you don't know what this film is about, it is literally just the story of Moses just helping the Hebrews to get out of Egypt. And
the Jews.
Yes. I wasn't going to go there, but yes.
Well, I mean, they're Jewish. Yes. That's what it is.
Say the full word, Frank.
They're Jewish.
Jewy.
Yeah.
Did you like this film? How much of this film do I have to defend?
Not much.
Okay, actually. Really?
Yeah, no.
Wow.
I mean, it's a child. It's meant for children.
Yes.
It's a movie that is kind of meant to tell the story of Moses for children and try to capture all of these kind of really heavy this really kind of intense giant subject matter, and squish it down to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And have a little bit, some elements of comedy, some elements of music, some kind of action adventure, right? While also telling the story of God.
Yeah.
So I think there's kind of two ways to analyze this movie. There is you are Catholic or Christian or whatever, and this story relates to you because this is the stuff that you believe in or that you were taught and you grew up with. And then there's kind of the more objective, this is a movie. And how is it as a standalone film? No religious background. Can you sit there and enjoy this film without having the context of growing up in this kind of life?
And I think you can.
I feel kind of weird about this movie.
Is it because you're a little biased? Because didn't you go to Catholic school too?
Yeah. I grew up going to, I went to, they called it CCD.
Yes.
I did my communion. Never did my confirmation.
Me neither.
Who does?
Yeah. Because what? You want to get married in a
church? Yeah. Truthfully, I feel like a lot of people in our kind of age group probably don't really follow what we were grown up to believe anyway. I mean, it's not that, I don't know. I'm not going to go on the topic of what my personal beliefs are, but don't really follow what my parents and what my grandparents and everybody kind of that strict Catholic belief is not really where I'm at right now.
Because I went to Catholic school for 5 years, and again, we won't get into beliefs, but there's something out there.
Okay. So looking at it from the standpoint of the religious that standpoint, I think it's a pretty good version, a pretty good condensed version of it for kids.
Yeah, because I think like they even say too, like it is like more or less like the best basis that they could do for like the story of Moses, like the most accurate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely took liberties from what I remember the story of. They definitely changed some things around. Moses, from what I remember growing up as, was not like this young guy. I think he was like in his 80s when he did that, when this whole thing happened. And, you know, this movie does end on a positive note, even though from what I remember, like the story of Moses isn't really a happy ending. Like he doesn't actually get brought into heaven. Like he's denied access, I thought, right? Because I don't remember exactly. I think it was that he like questioned God or something, and then he went up there, and then God was like, nope, fuck off. And then Moses is like, aw.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
The thing that I remember, and I think it's like the funniest part, because like the ending is such a positive thing, where it's like, okay, like Moses freed like the slaves, and now he's bringing down like the 10 Commandments. And I always remember like in the Bible, or like I forget, like CCD, they talked about it, and I just like burst out laughing. Is like all of this stuff happens that like there's literally no question in the film for God. Like God is there to like helping them, like between like the fire tornado and the Red Sea and like the blood in the Nile, like all that stuff. Like duh, there's a God.
Yeah.
And then he brings down the 10 Commandments, and like they're just worshiping like this golden bull statue. And Moses is like, "What the fuck, guys? Like like God is here, and you're worshiping this."
Yeah.
And then he like breaks the 10 Commandments. I was like, "Go ahead, write your own now. I'm done with you people."
Yeah. So looking at it from like a religious aspect, I think it does a pretty good job of breaking it down for kids, and I think that it's a pretty entertaining film as well for the most part when it comes to like the action and adventure and keeping a kid's mind like locked into it, right? Because there's definitely a fine line between trying to make a film and have it be like very educational and not get bogged down by making it feel like you're sitting in a class.
Yeah.
And then that's when you kind of get bored. And there's definitely a good balance of enough action and enough things happening that it always keeps the momentum going, where, you know, like a kid probably wouldn't get bored.
And it's weird too, because it's like I think I originally was shown this like when I was in like Catholic school. Like they brought out like the TV and like they showed the movie to us, and I think like they showed it like once a year. So like it's weird. Like as I was like watching this movie for the podcast, I was like, I think I've seen The Prince of Egypt more than like any other movie I've ever watched. Because like I would see it like once a year, and then my friend Alan, like we would talk about it like constantly. So like every other time that he would come over, like we would just watch it, like we just put it on.
Really?
Yeah. And
why?
Then, I don't know. Like it's just one of those movies. It's like either that or like El Dorado. But
okay.
You haven't seen that, I think.
No, but I was sitting next to my I put this on while my girl was over, and she was like, "You guys should do El Dorado, The Road to El Dorado."
El Dorado is fantastic.
She was like, "I don't know what it." She was like, "I don't remember." Well, couldn't remember the name of it. She was like, "That movie with two guys."
Yeah.
And I was like,
so helpful.
I was like, "What is that?" And she was just like, "You know, it's got like two guys." And then she's Googling. She's like, two guys, animated movie. And then, El Dorado came up. She's like, "That's the one." She's like, "That one's funny."
I don't know
Elton
what it's
John
about. Did all of the soundtrack for it.
I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it's
The
about.
City of Gold.
Okay.
We could, like, if you grow your hair out, like, just a smidgen, like, we could cosplay as them.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what they look like.
That's fine. Well, back to Prince of Egypt. Yeah. So, I think I've seen this movie, like, way more times than, like, anything else. And, like, this was just, like, a thing. And
but, like, was it because of, like, faith? Was it because of, like, you guys believe this and, like, this was almost like a comfort film for you?
Like, the first couple of times, and then it was just, like, turning into... No, this is just a straight up good movie.
We just like it.
Yeah, like this is like for like the soundtrack to this film.
I did not. I wasn't. I guess
you didn't like the sound.
No. I'm not saying that. I wasn't. And I guess like I should have been like primed for it because it's a DreamWorks movie, which means it's a Disney film.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be a musical.
Okay.
Like, but they usually are, especially during like the 90s and everything prior. So so I was like, oh, there's a lot of music, and then they kept singing, and then I was like, wait, is this whole thing a musical? Because the first like 6 or 7 minutes is like this big musical number,
Yeah.
and then the first piece of dialogue that somebody says, they're singing, and then the whole thing is like it's like a continuation of the track that you just heard, and I was like, oh no, is this whole thing going to be sung? And it wasn't.
Yeah, I know. It's just like songs in it. You almost got like the effect of like Sweeney Todd for me, like the first time that I watched it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, why are they singing? I thought this movie was about murder. It's like,
Yeah.
oh fuck, this is a musical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should have probably mentioned that to you that like it is on the spectrum of like a musical. type.
Definitely, yeah. The songs are pretty good though.
So that was like one of the biggest things was that like Hans Zimmer did the music for this.
Yeah.
Who is like renowned in like Hollywood as like one of the best like soundtrack makers in all of film. Like to name a few, like the man did stuff for like Dune, Lion King, Top Gun, No Time to Die, Blade Runner 2049, like, and then a bunch of stuff from like the past. But those were just like ones that like I saw immediately and I was like, that'll catch your fancy.
Yeah.
Soundtrack amazing. I love the soundtrack in this film.
I really, really like the style of animation.
So that's where I was like hoping to get you a little bit, because like animation's always been like that one thing with you where it's like I can never get you on animation.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with animation. Even films that are sort of, we did like Akira,
Yeah.
and looking at Akira and looking at people who review Akira, they always talk about how beautiful the animation is, and it's so gorgeous. And I don't know, like for me, Akira isn't the most beautiful, gorgeous animated film I've ever seen. It's just, I don't know, it's fine. It looks okay to me. But I don't know, there's something kind of like this animation feels like it was shot on film.
Yeah. And then drawn from that.
And I don't know during, because this was like 98, so
Yeah.
they probably did it in 97. I don't know exactly where technology was in the animation
drew
landscape, right? Everything was probably still
All of
hand
this was still
drawn.
drawn.
So, yeah, like there's just really cool moments of, as like a film buff, I really appreciated like some of like the really vast, big landscape shots, and you could actually see the frame shaking a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of like film, which is really cool. And like the shots of the ocean
Oh yeah.
they almost look real. And I'm like, wow, that is beautiful. I really like the anime. The characters, fine. Like they looked kind of, whatever. But
Like the background.
yeah,
the
the
landscape.
backdrop of everything was so good looking and so beautiful. And when he parts the Red Sea,
Oh yeah.
it's
so
so gorgeous.
So let me give you like a little insight too. So that scene alone took 2 years to animate.
Well, there you go.
With 10 animators.
Yeah.
But like it's absolutely
And
gorgeous.
I really appreciated like the details. Like the lightning striking
Yes.
while the sea is being parted, and you can see the silhouette of like sharks and whales in the wall of the ocean.
Funny enough too, I think like a historian was like, oh, that wouldn't have been a whale, that would have been like a megalodon being
Right,
like
technically.
the time frame.
Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yes.
All that stuff, like you can absolutely tell that obviously the people who made this film and who wrote the movie feel very strongly about faith and being, and they probably are Catholic, and they grew up being surrounded by that, because there's so much attention to detail to this film, and they even give you that little forewarning in the beginning, right? That little kind of like, hey, this is the story of Moses. Although we took some liberties, we believe that this is like the best representation of this story.
Yeah.
So like there was a lot of love and care put into this movie. That being said, it's very one-sided,
Yes.
right?
It is.
And I get it, because at the end of the day, most films are. There's usually a point of view of a movie, right? It's kind of a rarity when you get a movie that takes two sides and then is kind of just like giving you both ends. So, there's some issues there. I won't dwell on them too long. My biggest issue that I had, and I'm still unsure of how I feel about it,
Okay.
is coming at it from a point of not religion, simply as a movie. So something that, and I'm not saying that this is the right way, that this is the best way, that this is the only way. It's just something that I'm used to, is throughout all of these classic Disney movies, there's kind of like a lesson to be learned.
Yeah.
Right. And you're making a movie for children, and usually that lesson is supposed to be like a good one, right? Something, just as a quick example, Big Hero 6, right? An animated film that covers some pretty heavy topics like loss and grief and depression. But what it's the core thing is like family and teamwork, and like you can get through things when you have like loved ones around you, and then when you surround yourself with good people, right? Like you can make things happen. Like that's a good thing for a child to take away, right? Same thing with what was that movie, Big Red? About like the kid turning into a panda. Like that's about puberty, right?
Yeah, an Asian American like culture.
Yeah. And like it tackles it in a way where when a kid sees that, they go, oh, okay, like things are gonna change, and like but it's okay, and I'll be accepted, and like that's kind of where it is.
Yeah.
And in this movie, I felt very strange when, like, because it's a story of Moses, and like they're saying this is what happened. There isn't much wiggle room to change anything.
Yeah.
So this film sort of takes the stance of, hey, the way that these people got freed and the way that the way that they are now living a happier life is through death and through
through famine and
through
like
famine
exposure to
and
horrible
disease
things.
and and the only way that they were able to get out of their situation was basically through hostility.
Yeah.
Right. And then like I laughed because it felt so odd to me, and I didn't know how to feel about it, where Moses parts the Red Sea. All the Hebrews are walking through the ocean floor, and they're making it to the other side. And you have the Egyptians deciding that they're going to go in there. And then they start going in there. All the Hebrews get out. The ocean closes on all the Egyptians, and they all die.
Yeah.
And then like it just hits this like happy musical number, and the Hebrews are just like feeling so, it's like supposed to be an uplifting moment. It's supposed to be like, oh my God, we're finally free. And yes, it is, and that's great. But like I'm sitting there thinking, what is a child supposed to take away from that?
So that's the thing, is like I wish I could remember, because I've seen this movie like way too many times. Like I wish I could remember like how I really, really felt like the first time that I watched this film.
Well, right,
because,
but again, that's different because you're watching it from the viewpoint of in Catholic school.
Yes.
So like they're telling you that this is the story, this is what happened, and like that's not the angle that I'm coming from. I'm coming from the angle of not that view.
Yeah.
And simply like if you just showed this kid this film, what is the life lesson that they're taking away? The way that you get out of circumstances and the way that you deal with issues and friction in your life is basically through hostility and through fighting.
Yeah.
Which feels odd to me for it being a child's movie. Because I think that's the thing, is that it's a kid's movie.
It is.
Like if this is meant for adults, then that's a different story, right? But when you're a child, when you sit down and you show, your kid this, I don't know, it feels like a weird thing to be like, hey, this is the life lesson. The life lesson is that through all of this pain, that was what it's basically fighting fire with fire.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I would hope that like, because there are like certain things like throughout the film that are like, oh, it's about faith, oh, it's about like making your own choices, it's about creating your own path, and it's like I would hope that like kids would take that portion away from it. But I mean, again, like I get what you're saying. Like this movie is dark at points, like for a kid's film and for like a biblical film. Like the fact of them showing like, the Egyptians coming in and killing the firstborn sons, and then like showing the ghost of death basically coming and taking away the kids. Like all of
and then
that
like
stuff.
the montage of everybody getting killed and everybody getting
the
like
plague scene.
Yeah, the plague and all, and then like the lesions on the skin and all of that. I mean, I was like, wow.
It's rough. And like, again, this is where it's kind of cool, because it's like you were raised Catholic and I was raised Catholic, but like I got to see this film as a Catholic kid, and you got to
I never saw it.
Yeah, you got to see this film as an adult.
Yeah.
And it's like, that two different mindsets of it, because it's like, for me, this was like, I've seen this so many times that like I'm kind of like numb to it, where it's like I was a kid seeing this and I couldn't really process it, and now like as an adult I can process it, but I overlook it because it's like I've seen it so many times. And for you, you're like dwelling on this where it's like, oh my god, dude, this is fucked. Like,
yeah, and I mean, it's not like I'm dwelling on it. It's just I just have like a weird kind of like feeling of not for myself personally, but again, like for a kid who's going to sit there and watch it. And like, what are they supposed to take away from it? Because again, this is very one-sided. So you're coming from the Catholic, that's the side that this movie is being told from. So, like, and I mean, there are some historical accuracies. Like, it is, kind of mostly believed that the pyramids and everything were built by slaves, by Jewish slaves. So like that, there is like this history aspect of it too. But yeah, I definitely feel strange about the life lesson being like fighting fire with fire, and like God is kind of, willing to punish, like, because that's where things get kind of weird.
I know, because they kind of like tiptoe around it in this movie, where it's like you'll go in there and you'll ask, but they won't accept it, so we'll have to go by force.
Yeah,
and it's like, all right.
Yeah,
like, Give us a second. Like, if you persist hard enough, they'll give up.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of trying to be like the positive side of it, is like the more you persist, the more you can do.
Right.
But I mean, the way that it goes about it, I can understand where it's like, hey man, like for Catholics and Christians, it's a little like, wring your neck, like,
yeah,
it's a little,
right.
It's a
because
little
like
harsh.
even like I sit there and I was thinking, after this movie finished, I was thinking about Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ.
Yes.
And how that is obviously not meant for children, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is tackling the death and crucifixion of Jesus through a lens of, I'm not going to shy away from it. Like, and there was really no movie prior to that I'm aware of that depicted him getting beaten and crucified the way that he did in that movie. There was no other movie, like the amount of blood and the amount of close-up shots of, whips on the skin and things getting put inside of him and then ripped out, and like pieces of his rib coming off, and all of this stuff was like seriously intense. And even that movie kind of tackled it in a way of like, again, I guess since it's for adults,
it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, and it's kind of more of that. Like, that was more of like a, hey, I'm just here showing you what happened. I'm not going. I mean, of course, it did get a little like woo woo with the devil in that movie, and he like goes there, and then and then of course at the end he moves a rock, and he's no longer there where they put him. So but for the most part, that movie is pretty much just like, this is what happened to the guy.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not telling you what I believe. I'm just showing you
this is what
historically happened. Like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And this movie does not do that.
No, I mean, again, because it sits in that weird gray area where it's like, it's trying to be for adults, but it's also made for children.
Right. That's the weird part, I think, too, right? Is like, you're...
Because you can do that. Like, that, I've seen plenty of times where that's a thing. Like, even like nowadays, like, you look at stuff like the TV shows like Steven Universe and like Adventure Time, like, clearly made for kids, but have adult themes that adults can get behind.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very weird, like, for a movie in like 1998 to do something like this in like such a huge fashion too. I can see where it's like, it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Like, your brain almost doesn't know how to process this film.
It's just a strange, exactly. It's just kind of like a strange thing. But I mean, again, looking at it from the story of Moses, looking at it from that, I mean, I think it does a pretty good job. And I think that, maybe not like a child, maybe not like a 5 or 6 year old, but maybe like a 10, 11, 12-year-old. Like, that's probably the age range.
Yeah, process it a little bit better that way.
And you sit there and you watch it with them, and you say, we're going to sit there and watch this, and then they have probably a million questions, then you answer those questions to the best of your ability. Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like the movie.
Yeah.
I thought, at the end of the day, I liked the movie. I thought that it had enough comedy to, like, it made me chuckle a few times. I appreciated the adventure aspect of it, like the horses in the beginning, what is it called? The chariot
chariots,
races.
yes.
That was cool.
Whereas like you always looked up to me as like they're not much to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he was like looking at his butt. It was pretty funny. Yeah, like little things like that, they worked. I think Val Kilmer did pretty good for being Moses.
I was very surprised when I originally found this out. Like I was like, wow, Val Kilmer did this?
So wait, did you like were you watching this movie like for years and years and years and just had no idea who any of the voices were?
Like I did not bother to look it up because I was like, oh, it's a kids movie. Like I don't like I've seen this movie so many times that like I'm kind of just like, you know what? I know the voices, but then I never put two and two together. Like when I looked up the voice actors and I saw like Patrick Stewart, Val Kilmer, Ralph Fiennes, Michelle Pfeiffer, I was blown away. Like that was number one of like why I think like I wanted to do this movie was like the cast.
Voices. Yeah,
the cast is amazing. Even like when Moses goes to see the burning bush, I think that was like a really really cool idea where it's like you get instances of it like as the burning bush is talking of God, but it's like it's every voice actor talking at the same time. So in that way it kind of creates like this idea of like, okay, God can't just be like man or woman, like it's everybody, it's everything. Yeah. And then like the fact that Val Kilmer is also doing the voice of God, like when he's telling him like put your staff in the Nile for like the blood to come.
Right, yeah.
It's stuff like that where it's like that's cool because it's almost like subconsciously you're like, oh, okay, the voice of God is like your voice.
Yeah.
So it's like if it was for us, like I would hear my own voice from it. You would hear your own voice from it.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, that was really cool. The animation was step number 2 because like I love me some 90s animation. Like this, El Dorado, so it works out good. Atlantis, like all this, like the exact same like style of animation where it's like that crisp and fluent and clean that like nobody does anymore because it's easier to do like the CGI animation. And I get it, it's easier, but there's something about like hand drawn like this that is like pinnacle of animation that we could do.
It does look better. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, animated movies for sure have come like a really really far way. Mm-hmm. Disney is insane right now with the like. I remember I watched Coco.
Oh yeah,
Is Coco Disney?
Yes,
dude. Like the cobblestone streets, like everything looks so good in that movie. But I mean, there is definitely a nostalgic feeling that you can't really explain unless you kind of grew up during this era of animation. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that if you're a kid that was born in 2012, 2013, and now you're 10 years old, and if you watch this now, I think it would look dated to them and kind of old.
Yeah.
And it is. But for us, it has like that kind of nostalgic feel, and you sit there and you realize, like, yeah, I mean, they literally hand drew every single frame of this film. Mm-hmm. That's where, I mean, it's the best.
You can't get that anymore. And it's a shame. I get why, but it's a shame that like nobody tries to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I get it. It'll take you 10 years to make a film, but like the payoff, it's so gorgeous looking. Like,
it is.
Even like specifically, I noticed it this time when it's like, when Moses realizes that like, oh, he's adopted, and like he's going through like the palace and like he lays down and then he kind of like jerks himself awake.
Yeah.
It's like that crispness is like nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Funny fact too, I found out this movie's actually banned in Malaysia, Madrid, and Egypt.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh.
Okay.
I guess. Yeah. So. Prince of Egypt.
It was pretty good. Mm-hmm. It was pretty good.
I'm actually a little surprised. I was expecting going into this where it's like I have to defend this film.
Why?
Because you don't.
You think I'm such a hater?
Well, you don't like animation, so it's like I know
that's not necessarily true. I just don't like anime.
Well, yeah,
the anime tends to be where I kind of check out a little bit, and it's not because of anything except for they tend to be just so over the top and so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think Disney and the way that they tackle their themes and whatever, I think they do it pretty well where they can have that really good fine balance. Mm-hmm. Anime for me is just since I was a kid, I just never could get into the animation style, the art, anything of it. Yeah, I don't know.
I wish you could. There's a lot going on there.
I'm sure there is, and there's probably so many things that I'm missing, but I just don't care.
Yeah, 10. Well, no, 9.5 burning bushes out of 10 for me.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel yet.
like-
I'm gonna have to sit with it for a longer period of time, probably.
Yeah. Like it's a 7 out of 10.
It's feeling like a 7 right now, but it
like
may go to like an 8.
Yeah, like the nostalgia pushes it to like that 9.5. That's
Got you.
Like
For me, it's like sitting at a 7, and it may reach itself the more I kind of sit with it and think about it. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a entertaining movie, and it's also very educational. So going forward, we're only going to be doing Catholic movies.
Yes. So up next is Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
After that,
The First Reformed.
Ah.
And then The Exorcist. Because
yeah.
Catholicism. Zach, you have a recommendation?
I do. It's funny you mentioned you don't like anime because I have an anime recommendation.
Beautiful.
So I read a little bit of like the manga originally.
That's already not true because you don't know how to read.
That's you got me there. I do audiobooks,
Right.
so technically I look at the pictures.
Audio manga.
Yeah. But anyways, so I finally got around to watching Chainsaw Man. And it is
no idea what this is.
You don't. People understand what Chainsaw Man is. It is absolutely incredible. So the manga was originally made by Tatsuki Fujimoto. The anime has been done by Ryu Nakayama. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Chainsaw Man is like just really, really cool. So the idea is that like you get this main character. His name is Denji. He's like super, super poor. His father owed a bunch of money to the Yakuza, and he hung himself. So now Denji is placed with like just trying to earn back the money to pay them off. There are also these things called devils out in the world. So each devil is like powered based off of like if you're actually afraid of it. So like the mustard devil. The mustard devil is not that powerful because
ketchup devil.
The ketchup devil might be, yeah, but like the fucking snake devil is pretty powerful. So you get like the balance there. So he finds like this little thing. It's like the chainsaw devil. It's like this cute little dog with like a chainsaw on its head. Anyways, he gets killed. The chainsaw devil gets put inside of him, so they're kind of like fused. And now he works for this corporation that like goes and hunts devils. So that's like a loose kind of thing for it. The animation is like same as Prince of Egypt. The animation is like the crispest I've ever seen in like, I want to say 5-6 years of anime, because everybody is just using that like over the top CG animation. And like this is just like, you can tell like there are like a couple of points here and there, but like it's just so well drawn. The comedy lands so well. I'm actually really surprised it's on Hulu now, and there's 12 episodes in total, so it's very easy to get through. The opening theme song is amazing. Like I have it like almost on loop inside my head constantly.
Yeah.
It's called Kickback, but like it's just a really cool like jammer of a song. And I'm honestly excited to the point where it's like I might start rereading it to kind of like get caught up to speed because I stopped after a certain point. But it is definitely something where it's like I'm gonna keep track of it, and like when they come out with season 2, I'm gonna get back into it. So Chainsaw Man.
That was a long recommendation.
Well, you know what? I'm passionate about this one. You should watch it.
Next episode, we are going to be talking about films that make us cry.
Oh shit.
And I mean really cry. No it makes me a little sad. I'm talking straight up. I want tears
Like
out of the eyes.
If there's not a single tear, then it's not in there.
Then it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. So look forward to that. Zach, take us out.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Now, Frank, I am the morning and the evening star.